Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast. Today's guest is a film editor and much more, hailing all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. His name is Rick Ives. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Oh, hey, Christian. You go by Christian, right?
That's me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's going to be so much fun. I'm excited to talk to you.
I love it, man. I'm a struggling actor trying to get into the industry. So as soon as someone reaches out from the film industry, for me, that's like, I don't know. There's so much we can talk about. But I think like, if nothing else, it's like fun to talk to someone else in the industry that's like got the same sort of level of passion and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, in my opinion, we're all struggling actors. So there you go. Don't sell yourself short. Everyone's trying to make their own way.
what makes you special, pal? No. Cool. Well, let's just start at the beginning of your career. Walk us through how you got into film editing, like how that all started.
Oh, yeah. So, man, I was a teenager when Blockbuster Video was still big and Hollywood Video. I don't know if you had Hollywood. Did you have those kind of stores in the UK?
We had Blockbuster. I don't think we had Hollywood Video, but my older viewers can challenge me on that.
Yeah.
But we definitely had Blockbuster. That was huge.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's little video stores too. By the way, Blockbuster making a comeback in California. Did you know about that?
No?
Yeah.
What?
They're opening 4 stores. LA and San Diego. Is that crazy or what?
How can it really work in this day and age? Okay, let's go on a tangent for Blockbuster for a second.
First tangent, here we go.
Let's go. Like, how can it really work in this day and age? Like, obviously, there's the nostalgia aspect.
That's got to be it.
Like here in Manchester, for example, there's a bar that opened up. I kid you not, and it's a Blockbuster themed bar. Like you go in, and there's actually like videotapes on there, and there's even like a like dodgy, mature section and everything. Like it's really cool.
Well, Blockbuster did not have those. I remember, but
no, they didn't.
The smaller ones did. That's so funny though. Yeah, I don't know because I mean, Redbox is still pretty big here, so people do care about physical media at some point.
Sure.
But you know, it's just a trade-off. Like, yeah, it's great being able to click 2 buttons and watch anything you want. But what happens when that title disappears from the platform of choice, you know? Like, there's movies out there that you can't really find anywhere unless you own the DVD. Then you can still go to Amazon and get a copy. I still do Netflix DVDs because sometimes a movie comes up and I'm like, dang, I can't find this anywhere. Netflix DVD has it.
Netflix DVD is still a thing?
Oh yeah. I still get them.
Wow.
I know I'm old school.
No, it's cool. I just didn't know that was still a thing. Because obviously, for those who don't know, Netflix began its journey into the world as a subscription service where you would get the physical media emailed out to you. Yeah,
you would get the mail to you. You're right. So I can't imagine Blockbuster gets any big than a couple stores where it's popular enough to just visit.
You'd be surprised. I don't know. People don't seem to be very happy with Netflix, which is kind of mind blowing because as you may recall, in the very beginning, Blockbuster laughed at Netflix. Blockbuster,
yeah.
The story goes, and I've told this on the show before a long time ago, but we'll tell it again here. Sometime when Blockbuster had its mega empire in so I think it's like the mid 2000s, Netflix actually came over to Blockbuster and pitched this idea that they had. But like,
it wasn't streaming at the time; it was mail service.
Right? Yeah, but they pitched this idea, and Blockbuster laughed at them, and they're like, as if we would need that. But the thing is, like, Blockbuster were basically living off the late fees, which as a business concept is kind of crazy. Like you're relying on essentially your customers.
People don't know. It used to cost like $4 or $5 to rent a new release,
right,
for one night, and you had to go to the store, and then you had to go to the store the next day. And if you didn't, then what you're saying, you get dinged with that late fee.
When I was a kid, it was so exciting to go to Blockbuster, right, on like a Friday, Saturday night. And because I was big into games, so I would get like movies, but I'd also get like games, rent games, trading games.
I did PlayStation 1 games. Oh man. And you could rent whole systems for
and you could get like food there and stuff.
Rent an
so
N64
get, like, popcorn and like sweets and make a whole night of it. Like,
and you don't always know what movie you're gonna get because maybe the one you wanted is out.
Yeah.
And so you're just like perusing, like at a library, you're like looking around. Oh man, what would be good? Should I go over to the horror section? So I see what's on the wall for the new releases, all that stuff. So
and there was a part of magic about it that is kind of lost with streaming services because, you know, when you're on a streaming service, the blurb tells you everything you need to know. You can watch a clip, you can watch all this stuff. Back in the day, and you know,
Yeah.
if you go into these physical stores, all you got to rely on is
The cover and
that's
whatever's
it.
on the back.
That's it. That's all you got to rely on. There's
But there
nothing
was a
else.
lot less compared to today, too, you know? So there was a higher barrier to entry to make those kind of movies. So you always know, even if you're going to get something you never heard of, it's like going to have a certain level of quality versus today you can go on a
Yeah,
streaming service.
I don't know. I call BS
Man.
on that, man. I came across
Really?
a lot of crap back in the day. Yeah, I'm
Wow,
like,
because I would even compare the worst stuff from that time to better than the worst stuff that I see today sometimes on
okay, all
streaming
right,
platforms.
all right.
I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
no,
there's just so much out there that, I hate
there
myself
is
for
a lot
watching
of bad stuff and like high budget as well, but still trash.
this. Yeah, that's the worst. That's the worst stuff. That's the stuff that makes me the most mad. This is the big budget that no one cared about. And they
With
just-
this, bringing it back to Netflix, this is kind of where it's. I feel like they've kind of started falling off a little bit because
right, they become their own enemy.
yeah, like they've got all this money that they're investing into their own productions. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of big productions that they're doing that are still excellent.
Sure.
They've spent a lot of. It's kind of like a tier system when you got like the mega stuff that they push, like Stranger Things, stuff like that. They're always as good quality,
Yeah.
and then the further down you go, with the less budgets, the fewer budget. Speak English right now. The films
I know exactly what you're saying.
with lower budgets that are still Netflix productions, they aren't as good quality necessarily as the higher production stuff, which you would come to expect, but you don't necessarily, and I know as a film guy, you can agree with me on this, you don't have to have a massive budget to make a good film
Yeah,
or
correct.
a good show. You know, you just need a good
what
story.
you need is a good story, and you need to have a passion for what it is you're telling, you know, not just show up and check the boxes and we got an actor and we got a sort of cool idea, we got some visual effects house that's going to do this stuff for us, and then you just crap out like whatever, but you can tell that our heart isn't in it, you know.
do you think it's just they're just trying to just churn out as much content as possible?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what Netflix is doing. Yeah, because they want as big an audience as they can. So they have reality TV and they have, like art-driven movies that are going to go up for the Oscars at the end of the year. And they also have Stranger Things horror movies. And, I mean, they have everything because they just want to hit everyone to keep those people coming back. But if you watch their marketing, they'll drop a movie with no kind of marketing at all. And it's like on the top 10 of their list for the week. And then you never hear about it again. Never. You'll never see it. And I think that's one of the complaints that filmmakers have with the Netflix stuff is their movie doesn't get out there. I mean, it's available, but they don't do anything to promote a movie, and it's just buried in a sea of other Netflix products, you know?
I've never quite understood why they do this constant rotation thing where they'll take something that's beloved off the platform and replace it with crap. I don't understand. I mean, I get the whole license fees thing. I get that, you know,
well,
you're not always
Netflix
able
won't
to...
take anything that's their own off. It will always be there.
Sure.
But they do
course.
have license. Yeah, they'll contract something for like 3 years or 5 years.
But it's like if you got something that's popular, that's always getting you good viewers and bringing people back, why the hell would you remove it?
Well, and that's what HBO Max is doing, which is that is crazy. It's stuff that they own that they are removing and putting on Tubi where you can watch it for free. So they've got like, what's the Westworld, like super popular. First couple seasons are incredible, and they removed it from their platform, which is paid, and sent their audience to another platform to watch this again.
Speaking of streaming platforms, actually, I just want to ask you about this because it just randomly came to mind. Do you remember Quibi that was out a few years back?
Oh, I love the story of Quibi. Come on. It's the best. This thing got launched and it was dead within 6 months. And it
was it 6 months? Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And how much money was invested?
Quick synopsis for the
Was it
viewers.
$1 billion? Was it $1 billion or was it $5 billion? Something huge. They produce all this content, except it's all like under 2 minutes or under 5 minutes. And the idea was that you have TV series that are 5-minute episodes and you keep coming back week to week. And they had A-list talent, directors, actors, everybody. And then nobody signed up for it. Nobody.
Why do you think that was?
Because it was stupid. Why are you going to have 5-minute episodes of something nobody cared? Like, and you're going to watch all it. The problem was it was only on your phone. So you couldn't watch it anywhere else. You know, when people want to watch cinema or they want to watch like
Okay.
Premiere TV. You want to watch it on your TV. You want to watch it on at least your laptop, but right here, this is it. It's the only place.
Playing devil's advocate for a second, a lot of popular content out there, say on apps like TikTok and stuff, is all short form. The smaller, the better. So,
right.
in a way, certain apps and certain websites are better off being phone only, because that's mostly how they're going to be consumed. So by that mentality, could they have not maybe targeted that audience? Maybe they went after the wrong audience.
I think that's what they wanted to do, but all the stuff you're describing is not really story-driven content.
No, I get that.
That's the difference.
But
that's the difference.
But here's the thing. If you go on an app like TikTok and you see all the different types of content on there is definitely an audience for it. The majority of stuff, what people will be interested in will be 5 to 10 seconds of just nonsense. But there is like I see, this is crazy. I see people uploading entire movies in like, I don't know,
little chunks.
Yeah, like 100 parts. And people will be like, oh, please upload part 67. Like
that is crazy. I've never seen that.
It's mad, but people will do that. So there's definitely a market for it. It makes no sense. Maybe it's the commitment aspect.
There may be people who are going to watch it, but I just don't think it's as big of an audience to warrant, how much money they spent on all that stuff and to launch it from scratch. Just crazy. Anyways, the best thing that came out of Quibi was this software where you could be watching it horizontal view, and then you could turn your phone and it would automatically adjust to vertical view, which I think Facebook bought that because I think that's what their videos do now.
That's old news. You could that's just portrait to landscape mode on your phone. That's not.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. It wasn't just a turn. It was like you could turn your phone around and
and it stays still at fixed position.
Yeah, it would know. Yeah, it would know what you're doing. So it's super seamless, which was cool to see. Like the first couple times, oh, whoa, that was fancy. But now it's just old hat,
Ooh, wow, it turns. Wow. No, I'm being harsh. But no, I mean, okay. So that's what they sold off.
To answer your question, Christian, I loved Blockbuster. I would rent all those DVDs as, our family would rent DVDs every weekend or every 2 weekends. And I would sit there the next morning and watch every special feature on every DVD that we got. Because I cared about the behind the scenes. I liked the gag reels. I liked all the production photography. I liked even the little production notes. They would write little paragraphs on that you would click through and read about how they made the movie. I was just fascinated by all of that. So from the beginning, I just knew I wanted to work in movies. As soon as I found out you could go to college to do that kind of thing, I was like, my calling is right there in front of me. I know that's what I want to do. That's how I got into it.
Why specifically film editing, though?
So I got into editing when we were making movies and stuff as teenagers. I was always the one sitting at the computer putting it together. And in college, they sort of, you're working in a group and everyone's trading roles and stuff. But I always ended up being the editor just because I liked sitting at the computer and piecing it together that way. And I don't know what it is. I like video games. I think it's kind of the same kind of mindset where you're sitting down looking at a screen and moving forward with this thing. And when you're done, unlike a video game, you have something that you can show the world. So that's what's fun about it. But yeah, I just gravitated toward post-production, and that's what I'm doing still. So big fan of it.
There was one time I was watching an interview with Quentin Tarantino, and he remarked about editing. He said that when you get to the editing room, that's when the movie is really made.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I very often hear that the movie's written 3 times. So you write it once as a script, you write it once while you're shooting it, and then you write it the 3rd time in the edit. A good director will understand all those pieces and know what needs to go into a good script to be able to shoot what they need. And then when they're on set, they know what needs to be done to capture what they need. And then in the editing room, they need to understand how a movie comes together and create the best product that you can. So that's what the editor's job is. It's weird. It's sort of a position where half of it is a technical role. Like you just need to know the software and sit and know what button to push and work around quickly so that you're not wasting time. But also you have to have this understanding of story and pacing and be able to look at it like the first time, every time, even though you're watching it hundreds, if not 1,000 times.
I was going to say, does that not make you just sick of it, like by the end? You must.
It's a really strange for me because I've edited 4 or 5 independent features, and then I work. We haven't talked about this yet, but I work as an assistant editor, professionally on the bigger stuff. So for me, when I'm editing, I put it together, and I think this is going to win an Oscar. It's the best thing ever. I'm so proud of this. And then the more you watch it, you just think, oh no, this is terrible. Nobody's ever going to see this. No one's. And then you go through another phase where you're like, actually, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Actually, this is really good. I can't believe that we did this. And then you go back. It's constantly a pendulum swinging. Oh no, this is terrible. No one's ever going to watch it. No one's ever going to give me another job because they're going to see what I did here and know that it's junk. And then people like it, and you're like, oh, actually, I guess it's okay. So it's kind of hard to keep, separated enough that you don't take it too personally, but also you have to take it seriously and you want to be passionate about it or else it won't be good. So it's weird.
What do you think some of the most important edits that you've made, or maybe decisions you've made in the editing room, are that have sort of later impacted a movie that you've edited on?
Oh, shoot. That's a good question. Most important ones. I don't know if there's a single most important thing. It really just comes down to getting a feel for like the momentum of a scene and how people talk and where you should be looking at what point. So when I sit down to edit a scene, if it's one that I'm working on, I imagine myself as like a third person in that room or another person in that room. And I'm just watching and I think, okay, who am I looking at right now? Am I looking at the person speaking, or am I looking at the person receiving the information, or am I looking at the watch to see what time it is, or am I looking at the picture that they're looking at, or what is it that's most important? And so I want to be on that thing at that moment. And then usually you have a couple different camera angles that you can choose. Like, okay, so do I want this moving shot of this person, or do I want the static one from this angle, or whatever it is.
So
and
in that,
a lot of
sorry,
a lot of times in low budget or independent movies, I can see that they don't really have that figured out yet, and it feels awkward, like you're hanging on too long on somebody, or you're not getting enough of them, and you can just feel that it doesn't really flow so well anymore. If you only watch big budget movies, you're kind of spoiled because the editing's so good. I mean, even if it's not a great movie, the editing's still going to be good, and it doesn't take you out of it too much, unless it's like Catwoman or something like that, where the editing's so fast. Like, hold on, what's happening here? But yeah, check out some independent, low budget movies, and you'll start to notice that like a scene will go on too long, or like, whoa, how did we get here? You're missing something to get there, and that's really what it is. It's finding a good balance between moving quick but not too quick, and looking at the right thing to make it feel intuitive.
Yeah, that right there is really intriguing. What you just said, like taking a moment to look at it and say, what in this scene am I most drawn to? So with that in mind, how do you kind of go about, I don't know how to phrase this exactly, not making a scene boring or making it more interesting? Like, let's say it's just a heavy dialogue scene. It's pretty like, but it's important to the plot, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about making that more interesting?
Well, that's all encompassing of film because there's so many things that can make it interesting. The dialogue can be interesting, but that's the writing. The characters and how they got here and what are the stakes make it interesting, because that's all writing, right? I mean, you can watch a movie that's all talking, but it can be super interesting if you care about what they care about and you realize what they're discussing has a lot of impact, it has a lot of weight, then you will be drawn into it, and that keeps it interesting, even if it's just talking.
Sure, but I'll add to that for 1 second. So one thing that you have access to is, say, multiple different shots of the same scene or multiple different angles, stuff like that. So like if it was like a dialogue scene and maybe the way to make it more interesting would be to focus on a specific character's reaction to the dialogue, something like that. Like how would you go about figuring out that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's everything that goes into it. It could be a shot that's moving is always more interesting than a shot that's static. Personally, I try to keep it as a rule that when I was directing, either the camera is moving or something in frame is moving, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person's sitting still, then the camera should be going. If the camera's still, then the person should be moving. It could be both too. And anytime everything is static, you better be sure you have a reason for that. Like you're bringing people in on this moment right now. And if it's still, then they should be like sucked in, tractor beam, completely. Because if it's still and nothing's happening, then that's going to be boring. The other thing you do is look for things that are being repeated. Like if someone's saying the same thing over and over and over again, you got to cut that stuff. And that even comes back to the script level. Sometimes you could leave that in, knowing that you'll cut it. But if someone's repeating, the same point or concept, man, that's the stuff the editor needs to look out for. It's like, this is repetitive. We're going to lose this. You don't want to have too much dead air. I mean, you work in
Hmm.
podcasts, right? So you know what
Right.
that is. You don't want to just have quiet time. And that goes for movies too.
Yeah.
Unless you have a big moment where like you're having some super introspective realization of some kind.
Hmm.
Someone needs to be talking, or there needs to be music playing, or there needs to be information being revealed to you visually of some sort, or it needs to be beautiful to look at. You can't just have dead time. So the editor is looking for that too. So you
Yeah.
kind of apply all those things to a scene that's even like dialogue. You got to make sure you're focused on the interesting, words that are being said, if it's a joke or if it's, something um, like a concept that you haven't heard phrased this way before, or something like a character moment. They're coming to a realization of something, or it is a reveal, like a plot reveal. That's important to know. You're also working with the actors' performances, right? So you said you've got a bunch of different angles and takes. They did it 15 times. So what's the one that's the most authentic and doesn't feel like they're acting, doesn't feel like they're just reading dialogue or, regurgitating dialogue that they have memorized? What's the one that feels like real? That's the moment you want is it's not them acting. It's like you in the moment with this person going through this thing. So you're just looking for all that kind of stuff, in my opinion. That's what I think.
Have you ever seen reviews of any of the big movies that you've worked on, or just movies in general, and you've seen maybe criticisms of the way it's been edited? And did it bother you? Did it make you rethink things for future projects? Did you ever see anything like that?
I've never. Oh, good question. Um, I don't think I've ever seen negative editing reviews on anything I've edited, thankfully.
Yeah.
Usually it's other problems, which are fine.
We're perfect in the editing
I have
department.
seen, for the movie I was here to talk to you about today, the one I just released, I did see a couple of reviews that really liked the editing, so that's kind of encouraging. The thing about editing is it's an art form that is invisible. So if you're doing it good, then no one knows. People only know when it's bad. And there are big budget movies out there that are poorly edited, and you think, man, the editing's so like, who did this? Sometimes it comes from the director, and you can notice, even that though that director has different editors, their movies are all kind of the same style. That means that they're
Yeah.
controlling that. But most of the time, if you have a note on editing, it's because it's bad. If it's good, it just sweeps you away. You're just totally sucked in. I was talking recently about the new Avatar movie that came out. I don't know if you saw that.
I
It
haven't
was
seen it yet, no.
it was fine, and I mean, it was one of the best 5 movies of the year, but I don't know if it was worth like the 10-year wait. And when you set it
See,
up next to when you set it up
I'll
against,
interject there. Like,
okay, go
when
ahead.
someone says something is fine, I feel like that's worse than saying it's terrible because it's like apathetic. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
I
like, oh,
don't
it's
know.
fine.
I don't know if I saw anything in that movie that I haven't seen, in another movie in the last 5 years. That's the thing. But when you set it up next to Titanic, which came out almost
Sure.
30 years ago, I
Mm.
can't and I'm not even the demo for Titanic. That came out when I was a teenager. It was like a teenage girl craze thing. But it's so good that even if it's like shows up on TV, like in a hotel room, I'm like, oh man, just get sucked in because it just flows so well for me. And I think that's a sign of good editing. When you sit and watch a 90-minute movie and you're bored out of your mind, it was edited poorly. Maybe there's other things that went wrong, but it could be the editing. But you've also
Interesting.
watched 3-hour movies that feel like they go by in a snap,
Yeah.
because you just get sucked into the momentum of it. And a lot of that is just because of the pacing. I mean,
Speaking of,
there's other things, it's costumes, it's acting, it's the music, it's all those things, but a big part of it is the
speaking of
post.
which, because I like doing the old segues. Right there in the back behind you is a Marvel um, picture from a movie. I think is that Infinity War or is that
That
Endgame?
one, that one's
Endgame.
that one's Endgame. Yeah, there you go.
So I think was Infinity War I think that was the first production that was
of the
billed
two.
as that
Yeah,
was going to be like at least 3 hours or something, right? If I
right.
remember correctly.
Yeah, I want to say the Avengers 2 was like 2.5 hours. And
Maybe, yeah.
I
Okay,
think
so
Infinity
when
War
they
was like
started
three.
getting to that level, like as an editor, like what did you make of that? Were you just like, this is way too long, or were you like, let's do it, let's try and make it happen?
So on that movie and on those movies, I was working in dailies. I'm not even in editorial at that point. I'm an
Okay,
assistant editor now still, but it's tough because I'm a fan of the Marvel stuff anyways, and I
right.
just pinch myself that I get to work on this stuff all the time. Uh, I was excited for it being long. When I hear a movie I'm excited about is going to be 3 hours long, I'm like, yeah, great, sign me up because I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'm ready, for the event.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with the 3 hour movie. I love the Lord of the Rings extended edition, man. That's the only one I watch because it's good. When you hear a movie's going to be 3 hours long and it's something you've never heard of, it's like, okay, it's starting to feel like homework. It better be really special. I'll give you the chance. I'll sit down and watch it, but it's kind of a dice roll. It could be if it's just not there. So there was another 3 hour movie that came out in award season this year that did not do very well. Uh, it was about Hollywood in the 1920s. Did you see that movie?
I didn't. No. Sounds like a really
Babylon.
fascinating movie, though. I'm surprised. Yeah, I didn't hear about it.
Babylon, Damien Chazelle. Uh,
Bad marketing, I guess.
uh, very polarizing, I think. That was one of that you hear stories people were walking out of in the
Interesting. I
premiere,
wonder
the
why
film
that
festival
was.
circuit. I wasn't a fan, and it was super long, and it did feel like homework to me. And I'm not gonna crap on other people's movies, but it didn't work for me. So that was just an example of one that didn't feel like, man, it flowed very well, and
Okay, let's put a positive slant on it. What do you think they could have done better to improve the editing process of that movie and make it maybe a better viewing experience?
oh, you know what? I don't think it was the editing in that
Okay.
case. I think editing could have helped if it was just shorter, but there was so much going on in
just
that movie
just less
that I
disappointment.
was like, yeah, yeah, and that movie was just really angry and.
Okay. No, I
And a
get
lot of
it.
that comes from
Yeah.
from original, like the script. It was all on the page, so it took a swing. I respect him for that.
Speaking of big movies, one of the big movies that came out, he's swept up loads of awards in the Oscars recently. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'd love to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Oh, saw it twice. In fact, I watched it the first time over the summer. Back when it was released, and couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. Man, it's just so great. It's if anyone hasn't, you've seen that.
Oh yeah, no, I loved
Okay,
it. It
if
was a
anyone hasn't
real
seen it, it's like a drama, kung fu, sci-fi, comedy. Like there's no genre you could put it
yeah.
into, and it's just fantastic. I don't know if you've seen those other guys' movies.
Yes.
Swiss Army Man was the other like pretty popular one.
Yeah, I think the lead actress, I think, wasn't she in
Well, she was in Crouching
Crouching
Tiger.
Tiger, Hidden Dragon? Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
what I remember her
Shaggy.
biggest movie from. But she's been in
I mean,
tons of
I mean
stuff.
the directors. They did a movie
Okay,
called Swiss Army Man that has Daniel Radcliffe in it. You should check it out. It's very funny and
heard about that.
super weird. Super weird. Uh, that movie was so good. I tried to convince my wife, like, "Hey, I got this weird one that I wonder if you would be interested in watching this. It's like sci-fi kung fu. It's like funny and sad. Like it made me cry and laugh, and it had everything in it." She's like, "That doesn't sound like it's for me." All right, I'm not gonna push her into watching something she doesn't want to, because I only have a few of those, a month that she's willing to entertain me. But then it won Best Picture, and I was like, I think I'm gonna ask you one more time. Do you want to watch this? It won Best Picture, it won all the Best Actor awards, and I think you should give it a shot. And she's like, okay, and she dug it because it's weird, and we had the same experience where she's like, why can't you just tell me what this is about? And I don't even know how to explain what it's about. And she felt the exact same way, and it was over because it is about so much. It's like parent-child relationships and husband-wife relationships, and man, just so many things. And also, like weird song references and
Yeah.
cartoons and rocks talking to each other. Like you're never going to see this anywhere else. It's crazy that it did so well.
I think it's like one of the first times I've seen like the Oscars where I actually agreed, like, yeah, this genuinely was the best movie that came out like in the
Yeah,
past year. Like for real. Like
yeah,
it had a bit of everything. It was very ambitious. It was out there. As you
yeah,
said, it was
totally.
just crazy scenes, but somehow it was captivating. And it was also, I think, despite all the craziness, the story was still really well done.
Yeah, well,
And
it's
I
so
think
universal. Even though it's like time travel or
right,
universe hopping, it's still something you can relate to, you know?
exactly.
Because you think about how would my life be different if I
Mhm.
made different choices, and can I make those choices now? Can I salvage it? Do I even want to? You know? It was just great. I loved it.
Bring it back to Marvel for a second. I feel like that's why the Marvel movies a lot of the time are really good, and also the standalone like superhero movies. Because say what you want about them, you can criticize them all you want, but like at the end of the day, you're still dealing with like people, and they all have flaws. And
Hmm.
like I think like for instance, Civil War was a really good example of that. Like
Right.
how
Yeah.
you can just disagree philosophically with friends about something, and how kind of devastating that can be and the consequences of that and everything. It was for me, it was a pivotal point in that whole series. And it kind of blew my mind. I can't remember, there was a famous director, maybe Scorsese, someone that said that sort of criticized
Yeah. They're like
Marvel
theme park
movie.
rides.
Right. And I
Yeah.
get where he's coming from, but at the same time, I was like, damn, that's harsh. Like, I feel like there's a lot of ambitious elements to it, especially with the story. Like, to be honest, special effects, stuff like that, it's never really bothered me. Like, for
Yeah.
me, it's
Yeah.
always about, how it's constructed. So editing, how it's put together,
Hmm.
and then the story and like that to me is, maybe it's just because I'm an actor. So like, I love the
Yeah.
storytelling
Yeah.
aspect of things. But like, yeah, I couldn't believe that criticism. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but like, I was like, nah, I disagree with that. I
Well,
was like,
when you look at the trailers and you look at box office numbers and you look at the fans from the outside, it's easy to see how it is just a theme park ride, because people are having fun and laughing and do their fan memes online, and
okay,
it's different. But when you are invested, I've got friends who were on the outside and thought the same thing. And then at one point, maybe during COVID or something, they decided, I'm going to start these at the beginning and just see. And by the time you get to Infinity War Endgame, the end of that phase,
mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, what you're saying, there really is something here. Like there's characters you care about, and you know what everyone's ideals are and what they're fighting for, and it's very relatable, even though it's superheroes and they're fighting, a purple alien who wants to snap and delete half the universe. That's still like something that it's like a question that we deal with, like what is overpopulation and what's going to happen and how are we going to manage this in the future, and he has a solution for it, and it might be good intentions but the wrong means, and all of a sudden you're discussing something that is like really relevant to today in the context of punch punch kick kick.
No, I totally agree, and I think like if you take the current phase that we're in with Marvel, um, there's been some hits and misses. I don't know, like I wasn't
Sure,
particularly
sure.
a big fan. I didn't like what they did with She-Hulk. I was see. I didn't mind kind of like how the way they constructed it, how they decided to kind of like have fun with fans and stuff.
Yeah,
I
break
was
the
like,
fourth wall.
yeah, I was like, oh, screw it, whatever. But that ending, I felt like that was a disservice to the fan. I felt
Uh,
like that was a giant middle finger to the fans. I hated it um, because it felt. Do you know why? Because it felt lazy. Because they teased giving you an actual ending, and then they just skipped forward and just gave you this. I'm just gonna say how it is.
they skipped over the ending.
A shitty shit sandwich ending. Like, oh yeah, she saves the day, everything's great. And it's like, no. You've brought forward this intriguing story of oh gosh, what was his name? The Abomination, and
Right.
how he's supposedly this transformed
Reformed.
reformed
Yeah.
character, and then you got like this jealous boyfriend act who's become a superhero by his own means. Like there was all these like interesting directions they were going with it, and then they just do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
don't
can
know. It felt to me, it felt like they were just patting themselves on the back, like, "Yeah, well done, guys. We're brilliant. We're so funny, so
I can see
meta."
the criticism because you're right. They spend that scene like discussing what the climax should be, but you never see it. It's like a
Yeah, well,
snap,
yeah,
and then it's
exactly.
over.
Yeah,
So
I could have dealt with that because do you know what? It's ambitious. It's something different, right? But then they don't give you the ending.
right,
What the
right, right.
fuck?
So I liked the whole meta aspect of it and discussing what it needed to be and what it could be and what they wanted it to be and what it
Yeah.
should be, all that stuff. But you're right, they did skip over though. So what actually is it?
Like that was the thing that annoyed me.
I
Like
think that's a valid criticism.
I thought everything else was fine. I didn't really understand all the hate. I think some people just like, for instance, I saw a lot of people focus on the fact that like She-Hulk was more powerful than the original Hulk, and they're like, "Oh, how is this possible? How can this be?" And I'm like, "Who cares, man? Like, it's superhero movies. It doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
I didn't understand that criticism. I was like, whatever, man. I thought it was different. I liked it. I liked the character. I thought they did a good job with that. But then, yeah, that ending was for me.
Well,
That
and
was,
there's a famous movie that did kind of the same thing. It was called Old Country for No Men. Remember that one?
movie. I've not seen it, but I need to go see that. So
That's a Coen Brothers. That's a Coen Brothers movie. Yeah, it's really good. It's like a modern day Western, real slow, quiet, and thoughtful, and at times super violent and scary. But there's no climax to that movie. They literally intentionally withhold it from you and kind of make you think, now why is that? But that's the whole point of it.
Well, hold on. So, because there's a difference there. Because when you say it's similar, with She-Hulk, it's like they gave an ending. It just was a crappy, lazy one that didn't.
Well,
that
what
kind
I
of
mean
robbed
is,
you. Whereas what you're talking about
like,
is different. You're talking about like a sudden ending where it's like, kind of like a cliffhanger, but not.
it's not even that. No, because a climax does happen, but you don't see what it is, and then you pick
You
up
hear it?
after it. Nope, it just doesn't happen. You're just
Oh.
withheld from it. So it happens somewhere else, and then you find out, oh, it happened, and you weren't there to see it. So it's interesting. It's like
Okay.
I wonder what your thoughts would be on that if you would feel the same way, like slighted by,
No,
oh man, we
I
were
think
building to this thing, and then you like specifically didn't, and then you kind of rub it in my face that I didn't see it. So
is it
what's the
like
point?
two characters talking about what happened?
I think if I recall, yeah, it's something like that.
I love that.
But it's not.
That's
But
a
it's
bit
not a
different.
comedy.
No.
If it's supposed to be funny, yeah, that'd be one thing because you're like playing that joke. But it's not a comedy at all. It's a very
See, I
serious,
think
like dour film.
that could work if the two characters are talking about something like really traumatic event, and they're like really, like maybe like if two characters had been at war, for example, and they were detailing the aspects of that, and it was really intense scene and they're like emotional and stuff. I think that could work.
Mm. Well, and then that reminds me of another one that was oh shoot, what's it called? It's got Keira Knightley in it and James McAvoy. It's like a World War II movie. What's this called? I read the book even.
Oh
Okay.
gosh, I don't know. Not
Do
too
you edit?
familiar.
Do you edit this podcast?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I do it if I
Vamp,
have to.
vamp for me, vamp,
Vamp.
because I gotta look this up.
Vamp. Okay, I'm just gonna talk random nonsense into the microphone for however long it takes you to do your Google search.
Who, who did I say was in this?
Keira Knightley and James
Oh
McAvoy,
yeah,
which
James.
is an intriguing cast.
It's a World War II movie. It takes place. It's sort of a strange. Oh, it's called Atonement. That's what it is. So you've
Oh,
never
I
seen
think
this one?
I haven't, but I've heard of
Okay,
it.
you got to check that one out. It's kind of told non-linearly, like something happens,
Right.
and then they go back in time, and you see the other perspective of it, and then that happens again.
I think this is
And
it. This
the
right
third
here
act
is
of
an
that
important.
movie,
Go on.
again, though, the third act of that movie is that there's no climax. It's just a person like literally sitting at the screen for 30 minutes telling you what happened. And it's so crazy. Man, that movie's so good though. For me, that one really works.
All of these different things you've explained here, to me, these are different types of storytelling. Like the thing that annoys me with like not giving a good ending has nothing to do with like the execution of it in terms of how you go about it. So like either showing a devastating thing, or as you said, like having a situation where the characters are talking about the scenario or whatever. What I have an issue with is when you do something super lazy, like I've said this a million times on the show before, but what they did with Game of Thrones,
Mm.
lazy,
Mm.
rub it, no foreboding, no warning, just lazy, crappy writing.
Mm.
And we know that was lazy. We know what happened thereafter with that, but I felt like the same was kind of true as She-Hulk a little bit. They tried something ambitious, but they missed out a vital ingredient they needed to include, I feel, with that. And with a lot of these examples that you've given here, I think you can make the argument.
It felt like it was intentional.
Right. I think with the examples that you've given sort of preceding that, you could make the argument that, it would have been better to just actually see the events. I think that's a fair criticism. But at the same time, it's the whole point of storytelling and filmmaking is to be ambitious, try different things, like not always just do the regular formula. So from that perspective, I get it. Like, yeah.
Interesting. Well, you got to go check those two out and let me know what you think on Atonement and No Country. Those were both like Best Picture nominees too, so they're really good. But I can't remember how we got onto that. What were you?
Man, what?
Something about the current phase of Marvel like being relevant to today, and
so
care about the characters
with the current phase that we're going through. There's been a lot of criticisms about. Like they just feel like it's weak compared to the previous phases. I personally look at it like I think something massive is coming, and I think that it's purposefully been written in a kind of a calm way to prepare you for what's to come. That's my sort of perspective.
I'm right there with you. That's what I think too. And look, I work on some of these things, and I don't know like what's coming up.
Do they keep it like really?
Yeah. You only really know what you're working on, and that's it. So I
must make you sign.
I'm right there with you. I think we hit
this.
I think we hit this peak, and then we got to bring it back down, and then we can start to build again. And a lot of the complaints are it's not tied in together, and they're characters we don't care about. But you could make the same argument about the early Marvel stuff: is they're not characters we know about, and they're not tied in together. But you need to set that groundwork so that you can do that stuff.
One argument I've seen, which I do think is valid, is they're saying if there is a new Avengers movie down the line, which I think there is actually.
They've announced 2.
Right. With the current group of characters that we have in Phase 4, that's not an Avengers team right there. That's like, it just isn't. Like, I mean, and that's a major criticism that I think you could agree with, because when you compare it to the previous phases, those were teams that could work together and defeat whatever enemy is coming. I think with this current phase, you need either more characters or
some heavy hitters. Emotional heavy hitters, people you really care about.
Either that, or if you're going to do it with the current characters that you've got available, then they need access to powers beyond their comprehension or something. Because like let's run it down. You've got She-Hulk, so you've got strength there. You've got Captain Marvel, and obviously Captain Marvel is kind of indestructible or whatever. So those are like 2 power characters. And then you've got Loki, who is somewhat powerful, but it's more, his thing is more like being mischievous, being clever. That's more kind of his arc situation. Now we've got like a scenario where he's going from bad to good, so it's going to be interesting seeing if, like, I feel like we've got a betrayal coming. That's what I feel, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So I watched too much professional wrestling in my days, so I'm expecting a heel turn. But then the rest of the characters, you've got Hawkeye's apprentice,
Kate,
and then what's her name that was in the Black Widow? I can't remember her name.
Oh, right, Yelena.
So you've got characters that are very well skilled, but could quite easily be defeated potentially by like a overpowered character. And to be fair, we had those in the original phase as well.
Sure.
So you need those characters too. You've got Spider-Man, but I feel like with Spider-Man, they're doing something totally different. Like, it seems like they're going...
Yeah, that one, I don't know what's in store, because that's a Sony property, so it just depends on what they've contracted.
That's an interesting scenario right there, that whole Spider-Man deal, because I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities there. Like, one thing I've been clamoring for is a Amazing Spider-Man 3, but with the current Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom as the villain. I feel like that's just a natural film to make right there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I saw a lot of people after.
I think it'd be cool. I don't know. Like, who knows, man? Who knows what they have cooking? I don't think they've announced anything like that. Other than there is. I don't at all, especially because that's a different studio.
Okay,
but I know they have bad guy movies coming out. Like, there's a Craven movie coming out, and feel like there's one more that they already announced. I can't remember.
But okay, so with No Way Home, that was obviously it's joint production, is it not? Like you,
Right.
so it works
Yeah.
with Marvel Studios as well.
Right.
So what do you know much about the working agreement there, like how that works?
I don't know what it is right now. I could
Okay.
tell you how it happened was originally Sony released Spider-Man to do 5 or 6 movies that
Mm.
took place in the MCU. The first Spider-Man movie was produced by Marvel Studios and released by Sony. And then after that, they kind of like showed them the ropes, like this is how we do it. And then after that, they handed it over to Sony. And so Sony produced it, although they still used a lot of the same Marvel Studios staff,
Oh,
but
interesting.
they kind of oversaw it. And then, so there was 3 movies, and then Spider-Man showed up in 3 movies, which was Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, and then you had the 3
Oh, so they weren't for
solo
standalone
Spider-Man movies.
Spider-Man movies. It was to like granted appearances, essentially.
Right? Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Interesting.
And where we are now, no, but I don't even know, like if they've re-upped a contract or
I
if
hope
it's
they
like
have. I
one
mean,
at a
because
time. I believe that they still like have deals working, but I don't know
I
what
was
the
gonna say,
plans
I
are.
hope so because like, right now we're at arguably the most important point in the story. Like, there's so much, so many possibilities. You know,
Hmm.
there's the hinted fact that Ned might become a villain. Um, there's the obviously the potential of him fighting Venom, which again, I don't know. Like, it might be fun at some point, but
Feel
I
like it's
feel
been
like,
done.
well, I mean, no, we haven't had a proper Spider-Man versus Venom because like we got the one in Spider-Man 3 with Tobey
Yeah,
Maguire, but
yeah,
that was such a weak version of Venom, and it wasn't their
right.
fault because those movies were supposed to be much more kind of tongue-in-cheek fun. But when you compared all the villains, no, they did a very actually no, they did a very good job with the villains. Actually, when I look back, like with the Green Goblin and Doc Ock, you know, they did a really good job with those two. But then in the third movie, I mean, the main criticism I've seen is just too many villains at once,
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with
maybe.
you. Yeah.
Um, but like when you look at the way Venom has been presented now, it looks like much more of a menacing force. So
Hmm.
I feel like that would be a much more devastating situation for Spider-Man. Like, I feel like okay, this is just me playing like Booker for a second. Like, just I feel like
Fanfic, go for it.
well, they've already hinted at Miles Morales existing in Spider-Man. I
Yeah.
think they've even name dropped him at one point.
Oh, I don't remember that, but maybe you could be right.
Yeah, I don't know which film it was, but I think they said I think said his first name, or they either said his first name or they hinted at a character that basically exactly fits his description.
Okay.
So if the goal is to bring him in, I feel like the natural conclusion then is to kill the current Spider-Man with, say, Venom, but
Replace him with our new Miles.
not straight away. No, you take time with it.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
give
Okay.
people,
That's
you give
fair.
people, you give because otherwise there'll be a backlash. People will hate it. So you got to kind of, and it makes sense to kind of, or I suppose you could pull the trigger if you do it because they kind of did that with the computer game. They had like an apprentice type situation, which kind of worked. But I feel like if they've
Mm.
already done that there, they've already explored that. Let's do something different in the movies. Like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
let's, I don't know, but that I feel like would be quite an interesting concept. You wouldn't necessarily see it coming. Um, I feel like
Well,
by
you
that point,
did. You saw it coming.
well, I just felt like Tom's already done so much with the character. I feel like he'll naturally want to move on and do other
Yeah,
things with
yeah.
his
No,
career
you're
as an
right.
actor. So it kind of feels like a natural sort of direction to move in, really.
Um, anyways, point being, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think that there's enough characters here to build an Avengers team. I think they're
Oh,
probably
okay.
underpowered right now, but room to grow. And we'll see. I don't know how old you are, but when the first Iron Man came out, everyone was like,
Were
"Iron
they
Man's not a
really?
superhero. You make a movie about. Come on, nobody knows Iron Man. This is crazy."
Oh, but
No,
it was
that was
so
like
classic,
it
man.
was like a third tier superhero from Marvel. The
But
only
it was
ones we
so
cared
well
about
done, man.
were X Men,
Yeah.
Spider Man, Fantastic Four. That's it. That's the only interesting Marvel superheroes at all, and the Hulk maybe. Although those had failed movies already, anyways. Uh, but Iron Man was so good, and it immediately its stock was climbing super fast.
Why do you think the Hulk failed?
Those movies are just weird, man. Ang Lee's Hulk is like strange.
Okay, forget Ang Lee because I get why that I loved it personally, but I get why people say it's weird because it is a bit different. It's a bit out there. It's a bit more of an art think piece. Like I
Yeah,
get
yeah, exactly.
it. But
Exactly.
no, I'm talking the Incredible Hulk, the one with
Oh,
Ed Norton.
okay. So, um, there's a lot behind that movie, right? Because that movie takes place in the MCU. It's the same character. It's
Yep.
just played by a different actor.
Hmm.
Uh, from what I hear is Edward Norton wanted that movie to be much longer, like a 2.5, 3 hour movie, because there was a lot more character building before we got to the Hulk, and the studio saw it differently. And if you watch close, the opening like 10 minutes of that movie are really fast. Even the
Yeah,
credits are like telling a story. And I think that's part of the movie that was supposed to be 30-minute, 40-minute setup, and that they just squeezed it to 10 minutes to get to the good stuff. And Norton wasn't happy with it. Studio wasn't happy with it, so they just X'd him out, and we're gonna go our own way with it. Now that's another interesting one because Disney does not have rights to the Hulk either. That's Universal.
that would
So
explain why they've not done another movie since then.
yeah, so they're allowed to use him in team up movies, but they
Yeah.
cannot have a solo Hulk movie
Sorry,
or
who did
show.
you say Universal owns it?
Right, right.
Right. Okay.
So that's why you kind of get a Hulk story throughout Avengers movies instead of anywhere else, and one Thor movie.
So, because the next situation that they're moving with the Hulk is was it Planet Hulk or something like that? I can't remember what the storyline is. Something to do with Hulk in space. I think
I
is the
can't
next.
remember. I can't remember
Yeah.
if they're doing another Hulk movie or if they're just going to do She-Hulk instead. You know,
Well,
as
as
their
you
Hulk
say, I don't think
property.
they'll probably do a Hulk movie, but that's the next story you tell with the Incredible Hulk is him in space. And they've kind of told a little bit with it with She Hulk. They've just like he's randomly got spoilers. He's randomly got a son, like
Right, right, right,
out of
right. I
nowhere.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's funny.
madness. Okay, we'll come back to the projects that you've worked on because there's a lot of different things we could talk about there. But I want to talk about your film for a second because I think there's a lot of
Oh, yes,
interesting
thank you.
stuff here. So your film's called Solid Rock Trust.
Yeah, that's right.
You can see the poster in the background there. And also, what's interesting about this is you've taken on a slightly different role with this. So normally you do film editing. You've also worked as a stereo correction specialist in the past as well. But on this, you're working as producer, director, like a bit of everything.
Yeah, so this was my baby, in my free time as an assistant editor and dailies operator. That's the guys who do the develop film at night on the big movies. I'll have like a couple months off during a year, just because of scheduling. And so I started editing low budget movies because I want to be an editor. So I've cut like 4 or 5 low budget indies for this company out in California. And eventually you just get that bug. You're like, man, I could do what they're doing. So I wrote a script, I pitched it to them. They liked it. We said, let's do it. And here we are a couple years later, and the movie's done and available to watch. But yeah, so that was it. And we produced it, uh, casted it, directed, I edited it, did a lot of the visual effects. I just did pretty much everything that I've been learning over the last 10, 15 years in film to do it myself.
Given that you had kind of full reins over this, like this is your project, how did you approach editing it differently to how you would produce, sort of approach that on other productions?
It was a lot quicker because I knew what I wanted. I didn't have to go through rounds of notes and stuff like I usually do. Usually I edit something, send it to the director, and they say, "This is crap. Start over." And then
Oh man.
basically do it. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But they send you notes back, and they're like, "Okay, a little more like this, a little less like this," and you go through some rounds of changes. And a 5-minute movie is easy, if you're doing a short because you can like do all the changes in a couple hours. But when you're doing a feature length film, that's like a lot to go through. So
Sure.
you spend 6 to 8 weeks just doing a first cut, and then you spend 6 to 8 weeks like doing another version, like just getting through all the stuff that they want, and then even another month or two maybe uh doing another round of notes. So it's like kind of a slow process, especially when it's low budget, because you can't get it fast if you want it cheap, and that's what I am, on the site. So they understand they're working around my schedule, and so this one was a lot quicker because I shot it, very specifically to be edited in certain ways, and The edit was pretty quick. I spent a lot of time doing visual effects because there's kind of a hacker element to this movie. So I should tell you real quick, or for everyone listening, it's like a bank heist movie, but it takes place in a single room, and that room's not in a bank. And the girl who's the main character is pretty much a one-woman show. She's like got a whole bunch of cell phones. She has a bunch of accents. She has a bunch of languages. She's pretending to be different people depending on which phone she's using and who she's talking to. And she can hack into the bank and do all this stuff. And the people in the bank are her hands, right? So she's directing them around to do everything. So there's a hacking element to it, and she has a bunch of different computers. She's doing things, and I had to make all of those screens as visual effects, So it turned into like this big production where I spent just 2 months, like one shot at a time, going through the whole movie and putting in what I needed to. But yeah, that's how it was different, I guess. But in a lot of ways, the same. You have footage, and like I explained to you, like where do I want to be in the scene, and make it as exciting as you can, and that's it, man. Now we have an end product.
So this is one of the fan questions I had sent in regarding this project. It's as you mentioned, a single location project. How did you manage to keep the plot interesting and the atmosphere tense, given that, because don't get me wrong, some movies have done this. I think
Sure.
Clockwork Orange is a good example. No, not Clockwork Orange. Sorry. What am I talking about? Tarantino movie Reservoir Dogs. I think for a large portion of that, single scene. Saw's first movie, same thing.
Basically one room.
Yeah. So like, how did you kind of approach that and manage to kind of keep people invested in it?
I took a lot of inspiration from those kind of movies. There's another one called Buried. That's Ryan Reynolds. The whole movie's him in a coffin. And there's another one called Lock. The whole movie's him in a car talking on the phone. So it can be done. Part of it is just having a really great performance. So it's someone interesting to watch. But yeah, it's a tough sell to say, I'm going to do a whole movie of someone talking on the phone. I mean, that's not visually interesting. So I was just constantly trying to cram things in that would keep it exciting. There's a clock on her desk that she has to keep resetting because none of her phone calls can be longer than 2 minutes. So that was kind of an exercise in writing. Okay, none of these scenes are going to be longer than 2 minutes, even though it's almost a real-time movie and we never really break. We are going to feel like scenes are changing and she's moving on. And I'm trying to throw in, plot twists. Every 10 to 15 minutes, I have like a turn in the script to try to take us a direction where you weren't predicting. There's character reveals. There's secrets that we don't know, and if you go back and watch later, there's more to find there. And people show up you aren't expecting. People change who they are, who you weren't expecting. So I just tried to put a lot of that stuff in that's basically in the script stage. A story that's interesting to watch, and you never really know where it's going, and it starts to feel like a roller coaster. Also, emotionally, we want to try to hit a whole range. So there's crying, there's laughing, there's anger, there's a real good performance for whoever it is that we hire to do. Like, we want to showcase them and their abilities. Have a really great score. We found a guy to do a really great music. The cinematography, even though this is low budget, I wanted to put as much money as I could into making it look like any other movie, so we can get away with more because we don't have company moves and we don't have big fight scenes. Most of it's implied because you just hear it. And there's just little tricks along the way to like make it look more visually interesting and story-wise interesting. And the performance is fantastic. Just watching her do all these different accents and languages is incredible. And so I just think that there's enough there to keep you coming back. Like, it never gets boring. I try to move it as fast as we can and just pull people along for the ride.
Well, since you've got an actress that's doing all these different accents and stuff like that, like, how did you go about finding the right person for the role, like, in the casting process?
We just did a casting call, and one of the things I was asking for was people who are trained in that kind of thing, and we found her, and she speaks like 3 or 4 languages, Coco, and she has all these accents because she's just interested in linguistics and why, how people talk, and so she's like constantly practicing that. Lives in a bunch of countries and stuff. She's American, so she has like a neutral American accent. I think she's from like New York area, so maybe a little bit of that, but it's just fun to watch. I don't know if you ever looked at videos on YouTube of people teaching accents, or you ever see a big actor who you always thought was American, and then you hear them out of character. You're like, oh, hold on a second, that's a different person.
Love it.
I love that. feeling it gets you. It's like somebody else, even though you're seeing right in front of you, it's the same person you know. I wanted to work that into the script. It's part of the fun. So when you see her change accents, and she changes characters with the accents, like she plays a different part almost
Oh, right, yeah.
with who she's being because it depends on who she's talking to. It's fun to like just watch that performance, almost like a stage play, like a one woman show where you're sitting in the room watching her give this thing that she's rehearsed and practiced and put her heart into, and it comes off as really authentic and kind of vulnerable.
Was there anything in production of this movie that kind of came as a surprise to you? Like, I know you've had a long career, but like,
Mm.
was there anything that just took you by surprise, or was like a big lesson for you in filmmaking?
The big surprise for me was what happens after the movie's done. I always thought it was like 80% make a good movie, 20% get it out there, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. But that's not the case at all. You can have a terrible movie and great marketing and do gangbusters. You can also have a fantastic movie and do very little marketing and no one will ever ever see it. So to me, I'm kind of understanding maybe it's more 50-50 or even like 40% good movies, 60% getting it out there because we have really great reviews. We're like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and
Woo, there you go.
85 or 8.5 on IMDb. So people really respond to it well, but man, it's just so hard to get it out there. I've told this story on another show, but in Marvel, they have their own marketing department. They don't send it off to a third party, which a lot of, other studios do. So they're always asking for like, hey, we need this for a sizzle reel or trailer or whatever it is. And I always was just like, oh, silly marketing department. You guys, we're the real artists over here. You do your thing, go play in your corner. And now I have this new respect for them because it's so hard to do what they do. Like figure out what is going to connect with people in a very short form to make them want to come back and see the whole thing. And how much money do you spend in the right ways? Get it in front of the right people. And they make so much content to just convince people. And my movie you could watch for free. You don't even have to pay for it. You can just watch it. But it's so difficult to just get that 90 minutes from people to convince them that it's worth their time. So
Yeah,
that's been my education.
that's the tricky part about independent filmmaking. I feel like we're getting better with it, though. People are getting more invested in independent films now because they're recognizing that the quality is there, and that just because you have a lower budget doesn't mean that it will
Right.
be any
It can be
less
done.
good.
It can be done really well. A lot of it's
Mm-hmm.
not, but it can be. And if you're looking for something that isn't in theaters, like the Marvel template or sports movie template or rom-com, if you're looking for something that kind of is a little more experimental or unique and takes a little bit more of a risk, that's where you're going to find it is the independent world.
Completely
Maybe that
agree.
was always the case, but
Let's go back to the major productions that you've been on because I can't not ask about this. All right,
yeah, go for it.
you worked on The Mandalorian. I am a huge Mandalorian fan. Me and my
Oh, good.
housemate have been watching the latest season, and I think it's arguably the best so far. It's been absolutely brilliant. What have been your kind of takeaways from working on The Mandalorian? Like, good, the bad, and the ugly.
Man, I wish I could tell you some great stories about Mandalorian, but I only worked on that show for like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
They were using our equipment when I was doing dailies. They used our equipment to do dailies, and it was our company that did it for them out in
Yep.
LA. Because they used the LED walls. They weren't shooting in Georgia, so I packed it all up for them. I shipped it out. I was their technical support over while they were shooting, which was a couple phone calls, and it came back. And at one point, they needed like a clip off of that computer, which I pulled for them, and that was it. It was like I saw Baby Yoda or I saw Grogu before it was released, and I was like, "What is this?" But it looks cool, and I didn't tell anybody because I was still on an NDA. And that show came out, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Mm-hmm.
Always have been. That's like my franchise. Watched it. Watched the credits for my friends' names, and hold on a second, I'm in the credits. How did I
Oh
get in the
man.
credits? I started texting him. Why am I in the credits on this? Oh yeah, you're welcome. That was a favor from us.
Oh,
Holy
sick.
crap! I can't believe I'm on Star Wars. Thank you so much. And that's
Oh,
that. So I'm just a fan. I don't even work on those really. I'm just like you, just loving it along for the ride like everyone else.
Man, that must have been so mind-blowing, like to just see your name there on
It
the
is, yeah,
wow.
totally. Because you're expecting it when it's something you work on, and your family's like, "Are you going to be in the credits?" People find out, you work in movies. Are you in the credits? Yeah, I'm in the credits for all that stuff. But then when you see one you weren't expecting, it's like, "Whoa, holy cow!"
That's the
That's
next
fun.
thing for me is getting my name on the credits on a major production. Like I've been in major productions, like in a very low capacity, but to be featured in a major production and have your name there and actually
Right.
be on
Yeah.
screen, like oh, that's what a dream that would be.
So you've
Yeah.
done smaller ones, I'm sure.
So what I've done with feature film, I've been in like 4, 5 feature films, but like two of them I was just an extra.
Right.
Well, 2 or 3 of them I was just an extra, and then the other two I am sorry, 4 of them I was an extra. One of them I had actual dialogue in.
Oh, but you didn't get a credit for
Um,
that?
well, we're getting there. So one of them was Tenet, didn't get credit for that.
Oh,
Um,
shoot.
yeah,
Where were you
uh,
in Tenet? Oh, tell me.
just in the beginning. Yeah, you wouldn't. It's like blink and you'll miss it.
You have a
Yeah,
line in that one, or you're an extra?
no, just an
Oh,
extra.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
And then there's a few others where that's the case, and that's the thing that always bugs me is I get a lot of questions like, "What have you been in? Anything I would know?" The standard questions.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been in a lot of productions, mostly voice acting and voiceovers, but I have done on-screen stuff as well, and I'm constantly working at it. I've been in 2 feature films this year alone, and it's we're getting there. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
slowly
great.
getting there, getting opportunities, but like anything else in the film industry, it's a slog, and you get periods of nothing, periods of luck. It's how it is. You just keep trying,
And
keep
you
putting
spend a
yourself
lot of
out.
time waiting because you're putting auditions and you're waiting to hear back, or
Yep.
you acted in something, but you're waiting for it to come out, and it takes a long time.
Yeah, like right now, I'm just in the process of just trying to find a day job again because I haven't had anything come in a while, and it's just back to the drawing board, back to.
Well, keep at it. I'm not an actor. I can't do what you guys do. I think it's incredible and scary, and I'm fascinated by it. But if I had advice, it would be nobody. You don't have to wait for somebody to make your content. Like you need to be the person making you the lead role. You know what I mean?
Oh, I completely agree.
So there was a
I'm
girl named Britt Marling. Do you remember her?
can't say that
She
I
was
do.
in the OA. She was the main
Okay.
character in the OA on Netflix, and she had a couple indie movies. There was like Sound of My Voice and uh, what was the one about this? There was another Earth that showed up. Maybe it was called Another Earth. It like showed up in our sky. There's like a parallel Earth.
Don't know. It sounds fascinating, though. I'm intrigued.
Anyways, yeah, she was an actress and got tired of doing auditions, and she was like, I'm just going to start writing roles for myself. And she teamed up with somebody who was going to direct, and they started making these low budget indie movies. And she's fantastic. The movies are like crazy, kind of mind bending, like real unique ideas, but simple to shoot. Like the idea of another Earth showing up in our sky, and there's another version of you on that Earth, and like just coming to terms with that idea. And it's basically an indie movie. There's no like big budget sci-fi special effects or anything. It's like a drama with this idea, and they just came up with ideas like that, and it was great because all of a sudden she's starring in these movies that she produced herself that's getting all this attention. And there's no reason anyone can't do that. You know, if you're
Completely
as
agree.
talented as an actor as I'm sure you are, then write the part that you want people to see and start producing yourself.
Really great advice, man. Thank you for sharing.
Don't stop doing auditions. Keep doing keep doing that stuff and keep being in other roles too. Don't quit that. But yeah, that was one of the things that I guess that's a second answer to your question is what was the surprising thing is you don't have to wait for someone to give you your chance. Like make your chance happen for you. Just do it. There's no one holding you back. And in many cases, nobody's going to give you that chance at all. You just have to make it happen. So there you go. That's coming from Atlanta, Georgia. Your advice for today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Let's keep it rolling. Some of the productions you've been on. I'm just going to run through all of them, and you just tell me what stands out for you, good, bad, and the ugly, and we'll
Oh,
just go
okay.
one by one, and then we'll move on.
All right.
Miss Marvel.
Oh yeah. Super fun. The editor on that, at least the early editor on that was from Doctor Strange. She's done a bunch of big movies. She did she edited Sky Captain World of Tomorrow,
Oh,
Doctor
that's
Strange.
cool.
You remember Doctor Strange, the like mirror world that they go into? It's kind
Yep.
of like a kaleidoscope. They didn't know what that was going to look like, and this editor came up with that. Because they were in the editing room like
Oh,
discussing what is this
wow.
going to be like, and she was at home one day. And she looked through a kaleidoscope that was on her desk and was like, "I wonder if this is it." She brought that kaleidoscope in, showed it to the director, and it was like a light bulb for everybody in the room at the same time. Oh, this is what the mirror world looks like. Looks like this. And now it's in the movies. Like it's like not just in the movie, but it is Doctor Strange, you know? It's the whole vibe of the thing. So that's an example of an editor doing like way more than they were hired to do. Come up with the whole visual style of something. Miss Marvel was super fun. I have a special place in my heart for that one because it's like first Muslim superhero, right? Like
Hmm.
teenage girl. Um, she's got a really sweet family in that movie or that show. I did a lot of reshoots on that one, and uh, I think it was delayed a long time before it came out. But I
Is that
really,
because of the pandemic, or is that just other reasons?
yeah, it was pandemic related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hawkeye.
Oh, okay. So I only did the reshoots for Hawkeye, but it covered a lot of the show because, but that was a fun one. Uh, man, what can I say about that one? I like the down to earth Marvel stuff more than the magic and like Thor
Same.
space stuff. So I like, Captain America type, the action movie type stuff. So that was a good one to work on. And hopefully we could see Jeremy Renner in a part again. He's not doing too well.
Yeah, I heard that recently.
He's
I don't know
he may be walking again, but he
what
was in a
guy, man.
snowmobile accident.
Oh, oof. What guy? Rest easy, man. Well, we mentioned this earlier, but yeah, same question. So Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame.
So I was doing dailies for those, working at nights, and
Oof.
they shot both of those movies. That's actually the movies that I moved to Georgia for from California.
You had to
I got
move
hired
to. Okay, let's back up. You had to move to another state
Well,
to do these movies.
I was working for another company in LA. I wasn't really happy there. I was looking for another gig, and Pinewood Atlanta was hiring to do dailies, and I put my name in, and they called me for some reason, and I accepted the job, and we moved out to Georgia, and basically never went back because there's enough work out here to keep me busy. But
Yeah.
and it's cheaper to live. But they shot those movies back to back, so it was like a full year, maybe more, like 14 months out of my life just working on those. And I was working on part two before part one even came out, so I knew how part two
Oh,
ended before part one was even released, and everyone's like, the anticipation was real for those movies, and I knew how part two ended before part one. So it was crazy. I knew like Thor was gonna get fat. I knew who's gonna die, who's gonna live. I knew all that stuff, and I had to keep it a secret for so long.
let's speak to that. It must drive you mad. Like I've heard you earlier. I assumed because I've had to sign them as well. You had to sign NDAs and stuff. Couple of questions. What are the consequences of if you would be caught leaking that? Like what?
Fired.
Okay.
The end. And you will not be invited back on a Marvel show ever.
Oof. But is there anything else like I don't know, charged a fee? Because that would I imagine something like that. Like for argument's sake, let's say that you or someone else leaked stuff about that's happened in Avengers Endgame before Infinity's released, would have just destroyed everything. So
Yeah,
like,
I've never heard of anyone facing monetary like repercussions for something like that. Maybe it happens, but I don't know.
but imagine like something
I
like that
have no
would you'd
idea.
lose so much money. You like the production would lose so much from something like that.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it makes more buzz. I don't really know. I don't know how you decide how much money you lost from a leak, if you can even
Definitely.
equate that. So
But of
yeah, I would never do that anyways. It can be hard to
course
keep a
not.
secret, but also you don't want to spoil it for anybody because I don't want it spoiled for me, and I don't want to ruin it for somebody else. And it boggles my mind that people would go out there and ruin it for so many people. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? That's no fun. The fun is being there the opening night and watching it and experiencing it for the first time with everyone. Why
What
would you
did
want to
you
spoil that?
given that you knew what was going to happen in Endgame, what did you make of everyone's reactions at the end of Infinity War?
Oh man, I watched Infinity War at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. It's like a huge live theater. It seats like 6,000 people, and huge screen they put up just for this for the premiere, and all the cast and crew were there. It was huge, and you know those moments when everyone's dusting away. Not a single person in that theater. You could hear them breathing. It was so quiet. It was just such an amazing experience to all be in that moment together. And man, that's my memory from watching that movie with everyone. How great it was to just. It's like a sporting event because you know usually when you go to the movie theaters, it's like maybe 100 people, but thousands of people watching it together was just incredible.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, everyone was just going like, "Oh, I can't believe that they've just wiped off like 200 million or whatever it is of value of characters by getting
Yeah,
rid of all
yeah,
these
yeah.
characters." And
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Come on.
oh, I remember seeing a graphic of like every time someone would be Thanos snapped away out of existence, that's like
Yeah,
100
yeah.
million, 50 million,
And then,
200
do you
million.
remember the feeling of leaving the theater and thinking you had to wait a year to
Oh,
see what happens next?
bro, that's how I feel every
Oh.
time I finish any production. Like Loki finished,
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
wait 2 years. What? Come
Right.
on,
Yeah, yeah.
that's me nuts.
Sometimes the cliffhangers are so big that, man, it's crazy. Trying to hold
Speaking
on.
of
But
cliffhangers and Loki, you worked on Loki. Tell us about that.
so Loki was my first show as an assistant editor. That was after Infinity War Endgame. I got moved over to that department, thankfully. And that one was fun. They didn't have all the scripts released at the time we were shooting.
Interesting.
And so I had read like pieces and then I had stopped reading them because I got busy with work. And then we were shooting scenes which I thought were the end of the show and turned out only to be the middle. So that one was really well written because it moves really quickly to directions you didn't know it was going to go. Um, uh, Tom Hiddleston, right?
Hmm.
Is okay. I'm heterosexual, but the first time I saw that guy in person, not in Loki costume, he took my breath away. I was like, wow, that is an attractive English man right there in a suit.
Fair play, man.
He's great. He's so talented. There's stuff that's not in the show, but he can cry on command like I've never seen before. There was one shot where he was sitting in that library, like reading a book, and started off him just like opening the book and reading it, and then the camera pushes in on him for like 2 minutes, and by the end he's just weeping, and he didn't
Wow.
even move his face. Just tears are pouring down his face. That's what makes a good actor. To just go into a moment and be so vulnerable that it's authentic. Man, that's crazy. And only a very small percentage of people can do that. You know, that's why they go so far in their careers. But yeah, it's crazy. That was
Amazing.
a great show. That was a great show to work on.
One thing I wanted to find out as well, because I kind of assumed, and this speaks to my ignorance about what you do for a living, that much of your role would be sort of post production. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you do during production? Like,
Oh yeah,
what does your
so
role entail there?
I actually only work on production right now, in
Okay,
post production. So they edit while we're shooting because a lot of times they'll want the scene cut before they tear the set down to know that they got what they needed.
right.
Or if they've had that scene edited, you know, in 2 days, that set's still standing. Oh shoot, we need to pick something up so they can go back to it and capture it and not have to do reshoots 6 months down the line. Um,
Okay.
my job as a second assistant editor is to receive all the footage that they shot the previous day, and I just literally go through everything, make sure nothing's missing. I mark basically anytime the director says action, we put a little marker on that so the editor can just jump down to the good stuff. Sometimes we'll do sound design. Sometimes we'll do every time they shoot slow motion, we make it regular speed, so they have a slow motion version and a regular speed version. We do this thing called script sync, where you tie in the video to the actual text of the script, and then you can check or select a line of dialogue and see the 20 different versions that the actor said that in. So a year from now, when the director and editor are working on it, the director's like, I don't really like that version. Can I see another take? Yeah, in fact, you can see all 20. Here you go. Push one button, and you can just see them say that line 20 times from different angles.
Wow.
And so that's kind of tedious to do, but it's super cool to watch when it's done, and actually kind of an education to see what an actor is doing, you know. when they do another take, when they do another take, when they do another take, now you can see all the different versions that they're doing with that character. That's basically my job, and that's the case not even just for Marvel, but that's what we do, no matter what production it is. So
It sounds so interesting, like just as a career to have. Like,
yeah,
wow.
it's fun.
um, yeah. Obviously, you just shared that you had an experience sort of seeing Tom Hiddleston in action. Has there been any other memorable instances where you got to see the cast in action that sort of stood out for you?
When I was doing before I came out to Georgia, I was in LA. I was working with a device called NCAM. It's sort of like a live previs tool. They attach it to the real camera and then feed the information to the monitors, and they can fill in the blue screen live, or they can put a CG character into the room live, so the
Oh,
cameraman
right.
can see it on the monitor
Well,
instead of just pretend.
like AR kind of thing, or
Yeah, it's exactly like it's
oh,
AR,
wow.
except it's on cinema cameras, so it's not just your iPhone. Um, anyways, I got trained up to do that thing, and then I found out one week, hey, you're going out to a movie that they're using this on in New Mexico, and
Wow.
like 4 days later, I was standing on the top of a pretend hill indoors, watching a spaceship land, and I was standing next to Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman, and like this is so weird. Just watch them here, and it was Independence Day Resurgence was the movie. Uh, yeah, so that was wild. All of a sudden, you're just like there, man. Jeff Goldblum's like standing right in front of you, like singing to you. Jeff Goldblum's amazing. He'll just walk around set and like sing songs in between takes to anybody who's like will listen.
Oh, that's awesome,
And
man.
yeah, it was such a great experience. Not a great movie, but super fun to be on set and just see, like how they do this. And it's like crazy sci-fi action movie and great actors that you grew up watching. And then that's the movie I'm an extra in, by the way. I was like,
Oh,
I love Independence Day. You got to put me in this movie. I got to be friends with the second assistant director, make me an extra. And so, yeah, I'm same thing, blink and you miss it kind of role, but it was fun to be there. So that was another good one with actors. Um, Thor, Chris Hemsworth touched my shoulder once. We did one of those, like walked around the corner and sorry, sorry, couldn't figure out which way to
yeah.
patted my shoulder, and I never showered since then. I keep that shoulder dry. Uh, man, it's just stuff like that. It's cool.
Okay. Anything you've seen, here's your chance now to bury someone. Anything unprofessional, or maybe just, you saw a particular actor just acting in a sort of shitty way,
Um,
terrible way, anything like that.
I actually have not ever seen that. I've never seen anyone lose
That's
their
good.
crap on set. Marvel, especially, it seems like everyone really wants to be there. They really care about the work. It's not just a paycheck.
Yeah.
I part of that might be because they don't necessarily get tippy top A-list actors. They want people who are interested in being a part of something, not just making money. Like building
Yeah.
their brand. Um, if you notice, a lot of the people that they select, it's like up and comer types. Um, Trying to think if I ever seen anything bad. No, I hear stories about other people, but
Okay, share some stories.
I'm not going to say anything bad about someone I never even met. The stuff that is fun to hear, I mean, maybe not fun, like in a sick way, is this when you hear things about people and then it comes out in the news. Like, turns
Okay.
out this person isn't so great after all, like Ellen or something like that, and that
Right.
story blows up. You're like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. But that's all. I mean, I'm there with you guys. I don't really know the truth or not. I just read this
Nah,
headlines like
you're playing diplomat now, and I know why you're doing it, and I respect it.
but seriously, on Marvel, I've never seen anyone be anything except so excited to be there on Marvel stuff. Sometimes there's like egos, like the day they shot the all woman shot at the end of
Right.
Endgame. That all those women were there, which was super cool. But they all come with a hair person, a makeup person, a personal assistant, and walking around set that day was crazy because you got like 20 ladies times four. All of a sudden, the cast is like tripled in size, or the crew is tripled in size because of all their help. And again, that wasn't bad. It's just like, holy cow, this comes with a lot of work, like extra work, just to take care of all those people and have food for all those people and places to stay. It's crazy. But yeah, like I said, everyone who I've ever seen in Marvel is just so excited to be there, direct, like cast and crew. Um, and that's most of what I work on. So it's not like I have other bad projects I could tell you uh, was bad. So
That's good. I
yeah,
mean, I prefer to hear that if I'm honest. Like,
yeah.
obviously, I have to
I'm
ask the
also not on
question.
set that often, because I work in post
Right.
production. So I'll, like go by for an hour or two
Hmm.
at the most. Nowadays, not even at all because COVID restrictions are so tight. Uh, so you really only see like what's on camera, and I've never seen anyone blow up on camera. That'd be crazy. Uh,
Yeah, I was
I'll
gonna say
tell you. I'll
because
tell you this. One time when we were shooting the scene where, I can never remember Scarlett Johansson, not
yeah,
Scarlet Witch. Scarlett Johansson. What's her Black Widow? The
it's
scene where they're on the planet and fighting over who's gonna live and who's gonna die.
yeah,
So I was there for some of that on
cool.
set, and there was one take I was standing like I don't know, 30 feet away from her, 40 feet away from her, and they call action, and she starts acting, and I realize I'm just watching, like watching the performance, and I realize I'm standing right behind camera, even though it's like a long ways away, and she just locks eyes with me. And in
Oh,
that moment, I was like, I should
oh
not be here.
no.
I thought it was part of a way. I'm just like one guy standing out of the way, and then boom, I'm right in her eye line. Oh, it felt so
Oh, it
bad.
happens though. It's like that scene in The Mandalorian, I think season two, where there's just like a random guy's like arm and leg in shot.
Yeah.
And like so many people started doing like cosplays of that at Comic Con. Like I just
Oh,
thought
that's
it's
too
brilliant.
funny. Too funny.
It just happens, isn't it? Or the, like the Starbucks cups in Game of Thrones. Like it
That's so
happens.
funny.
It happens. All right, let's run through a few more of the projects you worked on. Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so that was I left Loki halfway through after COVID and got moved onto that job for the second half of what they were shooting. That one went through a lot of external factors, if that makes sense, shooting it. So they were supposed to shoot in South America.
Okay.
All the foreign country stuff was supposed to be South America, but there was an earthquake. So they had to
Wow.
cancel that like day of. And then they went to Prague, I think, to shoot all that stuff that you know. But then
Hmm.
COVID happened, so they had to shut that down like 2 days in and then go back months and months later to finish it again. So that show was just had like the world against it. And again, that's the stuff I like the most, the action movie stuff. And I tell you what, Anthony Mackie and what's the other guy's name? Who plays Bucky?
Sebastian Stan.
Yeah. Those two together are so funny. I could hardly stand it. And a lot of that stuff didn't make it into the cut. But I was like, man, like the best buddy comedy I've seen in ages because together they're just constantly cracking each other up and laughing. And it is hilarious to watch. And I don't know if you know this, but at the end of every take, maybe, Anthony Mackie, he'll say, cut the check. Let's lunch. Like he did so good. He's just like spreads that energy to everyone. Like that was bomb, you guys. We got it. It's in the can. Cut the check, baby. I loved being on set, or not on set. I wasn't even on set for that one, but I loved watching all that stuff. He's so funny.
That's good when you see that. It should be fun. Like, that's one thing I've learned about acting in my career is that like if it's not fun, there's just no point. Like you need
Yeah,
to be able
yeah,
to have fun with everyone, cast, crew. That it's a group um thing. You know, everyone comes together to do this.
yeah, yeah.
And
I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the tone of the project. I've never
yep.
worked on a serious like drama
Hmm.
where I've never worked on like a World War II movie or like a
Right.
Holocaust movie. That's got to be hard emotionally.
Yeah.
Because the Marvel stuff is all light. Even when it's serious, it's kind of like fun. So yeah, it should be fun.
Absolutely. Um, Journey to the Mysterious Island.
So that
Tell us
was the
about this.
first movie I ever got sent on right out of college, doing 3D dailies. And we went to Hawaii. I met Michael Caine. I met The Rock. I met Louis. What's his name? Louis. What's his
Oh, I
name
don't
in that
know.
movie?
You've lost me. I don't know.
Josh Hutcherson's in that movie.
There's a
What's her
lot of
name?
people in that.
What's her name
Kevin
from?
Hart.
Nope, that's the Jumanji movies. Almost the same movie.
Yeah,
Or
it's
that's
just I know that
Jumanji.
they're all like set in the
Shot in the same
jungle.
place. Also, The
Yeah.
Rock. Same outfit.
Literally, like there's 4 different movies. He's in the jungle.
Vanessa Hudgens. Oh, she's in that one. Yeah, from High School
Yeah.
Musical. So that was cool. Like paid trip to Hawaii for 3 months.
Oh
Man,
man.
loved it. And you got to go to all the, they shoot a ton of stuff out there, like Jurassic Park. They have this place called Kualoa Ranch where they shoot all those movies. It's the big, like, valley that you see in Jurassic Park, with the ocean in the background. And you could take movie tours there. Like, so they have a huge Godzilla foot where they shot Godzilla, and they shot like Wind Talkers out there, and that's where the Jumanji movies are nowadays. And obviously, Journey was there, Jurassic Park was there. Just so much stuff, and you can go around all these different spots to see like the locations that they shot. It's cool. Hawaii's great.
Speaking of dinosaurs, you worked on one of my favorite productions of all time. Very dear to my heart. Walking with Dinosaurs. Tell us about your experience working on that.
You're a Walking on Dinosaurs fan, huh?
Dude, I grew up, you got to remember, I grew up with this show. Like this
That
was
wasn't as big here in the
huge.
United States.
Oh, it was huge in the UK.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because I was a kid when it came out. At least the first. I mean, I know they picked it up later on, but like when they first came out, and it was akin to that scene in Jurassic Park when you see the Diplodocus and everything in the shot for the first time. It's similar kind of vibes. It was like bringing this history to life. It was incredible. But yeah, talk us your experiences working on that.
They shot that movie like a live action movie where they went to all these locations and shot real things and then put CG dinosaurs in. And originally it was supposed to be the Walking with Dinosaurs, where it's like almost a documentary.
Yeah.
Except with CG dinosaurs. And it was in 3D. At some point they realized they'd spent so much money they needed a bigger audience, so they like started making a story. And don't they have voices in that movie?
I don't know, to be honest.
I think they do. And then they shot like a framing story where kids and their uncle or something are modern day, are like uncovering dinosaurs, and he tells them this story, and then they come back to it. It's Carl Urban. So that was the stuff I worked on, was the live actions with the actors. And I just saw, a lot of the visual effects come through. It was kind of cool. That's where I was learning 3D and how 3D worked. So
experiences working on Hugo.
Okay, so that's the first movie I ever worked on that was released. So Journey was the first one I worked on, and then after that I worked on Hugo in post-production, and then it came out before Journey. And dude, my first credit, Academy Award winning movie, I was like,
huge.
This is easy. Why did everyone say working in this industry so hard? Like, that was a piece of cake. No, not that easy. I just happened to luck into this job, and it was super cool to be working on. I never got to meet Scorsese, but it was fun to be a part of that movie. And I don't know if that movie's really held up so well, right? It doesn't get talked about too much. I mean, it's Scorsese's Academy Award winning movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
how often do you hear about that?
Well, some movies are like that, aren't they? Like, where they're of their time, and I don't know. I mean, I've only ever heard good things about it, to be fair.
Oh yeah, it's great. But it's not like mind blowing memorable. It's just like a Christmas movie that loves old movies.
Well, I guess there's a market for everything, isn't there? So certain movies they're of their time. Like, I remember a while ago, someone said to me, they were talking about, that was it, the remake of Planet of the Apes, the 2000 one with what's his name? Mark Wahlberg, yeah. And they described it as
Tim Burton movie.
They described it as being like a weekend blockbuster, and that's it. And I was like, damn, but it's true. Like, it had a lot of buzz at the time. It was very ambitious, some intense scenes in there, and then never spoken about again. Just got it done. That's it.
Yeah, I remember being so excited for that movie. And then I saw that movie in theaters with my parents, and I remember thinking, not great. The new Planet of the Apes movies are incredible.
Right. Yeah.
But that one was like, that might have been the downfall of Tim Burton. Like, that was the period where you're like, wait, Tim Burton's amazing. What are you doing?
It's just ambitious.
You don't think that? Yeah.
I don't think it deserves as much hate as it got. I think they tried some different stuff with it. I think it is one of those instances where it's very hard to compare to the original, even though the original was like,
60s.
lower budget. Yeah, and lower budget,
low
different
budget.
vibe. Yeah. It was still incredible story. And then the newer ones are closer to capturing that
Right.
kind of. But then you got the classic scenes. Like you got the bit where he goes back to Earth and it's covered in it's changed and now like the Abraham Lincoln statue is
Right,
now
right.
a monkey
I
and
hated
stuff.
that. I hated that.
I thought it was brilliant. I loved it.
I did
I
not like.
yeah, because it's like no, like it's intense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The thing about the Planet of the Apes movies is not the later older ones because they did get into action movie territory where it's like silly
Yeah.
guns and stuff and buses on fire. But what's special about Planet of the Apes is it's a mirror of our own world, and we can see like how broken the world of the Planet of the Apes is, and also say, "Oh shoot, but that's us too," you know?
Mm.
And that's what makes that first one and the second one so good, and that's what makes the newer one so good. Is it's okay, monkeys fighting humans, sure, but it's really like an allegory for what makes us different and what makes us the same, and why are we fighting at all, you know? But I don't think that the Tim Burton one captured that. It was just an action movie with monkeys.
Fair play, man. Fair play. Um, got a bit of a random left field question for you, but I was intrigued to kind of get your thoughts on this. What do you make of YouTube editors? Given that you work in the film industry, and it's a very different like so. Okay, so to give some context of the question, what I mean by this, obviously it's a very different thing entirely, but there's a lot of kind of ambitiousness in editing, and it's changed a lot over the years as far as what people do with like YouTube videos. So in the early days, it was just basics, like people didn't really know
Silly
what they were
videos,
doing.
yeah.
Right. But now it's evolved to this point where you can be watching some of your favorite YouTubers, and sometimes it's the editing that makes the videos, like makes them entertaining, draws that in the various different demographics. I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on it from a sort of a film editor's perspective.
I think that the business of YouTube is really interesting, strange, because you can make a lot of money there. A lot of people are, but there's also so many people who can't make a lot of money, right? You really have to find a way to build a huge fan base. And it's more work than people realize. I don't know if you do. I mean, you have this on YouTube. I don't know if you do.
Right, but I always keep my editing. This is what I mean. I keep it very low end. I mean, the only editing I really do, I do quite a bit of editing on for this show, as far as like just making sure it's like cutting clips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd say the most editing I do that's creative is on like TikTok, but that's like very
Yeah.
short. It's very
But
basic.
you have an interview format, so it's not like you're doing anything flashy. You're just
Right,
like
but then
bringing conversation to people.
to the point, there is a lot of people that are doing very flashy things, and there's been a lot of different videos I've seen over the years with YouTube, especially more in the last 5 to 10 years, that really do make the content, make it so much more engaging than it would have just been if it had just been a guy talking in a camera.
Yeah, I guess I haven't watched that much of that.
Okay.
What I think I see is it's very difficult to build a huge fan base, and it's more work than people realize when they start off down that road. And you have to be so committed to doing that for years before you ever see anything from it. And it's tough to pay people at that level. So you're either doing it yourself or you're paying somebody, but you're paying them so low that it's not really sustainable. They're going to get another job and then leave, or they just can't do it anymore, and you're off looking for somebody else again. So a lot of the message boards I see, people hiring YouTube editors is like, hey, it's not for any money yet, or it's really low pay, and it's like ridiculously low pay. Like $5 a video, and the video is 20 minutes long. Like, you're paying me like 2 cents an hour.
It is. I think that's the problem as well, because like what they want versus what they're going to get for that, two different things.
So power to the big channels who can afford, a staff to do that. And it is a staff. It's not like the YouTube personality is like just doing all this stuff by themselves, because I guarantee you they're not. It's a lot of work to make it look that good and to produce that much, if they're doing something every couple days or every week even. So yeah, it's just a weird world. I'm in a union, so we have protections on how many hours you can work in a day and a minimum pay scale that you're going to get. And you're going to get holiday pay and you have to get overtime, all that stuff. But in that world, there's no protection like that. It's like the Wild West. So I think you get a lot of up and comer editors who just want practice, which is great, and it's great like breeding ground for that. But I think the turnover is so quick; it's hard to sustain. Maybe that's why you don't see as many really well done channels as there are people, because it's just so hard to produce that stuff well.
Thank you. I know that was a really like left field question, a bit
That's
random,
fine.
but speaking of left field questions, moving forward to the fan questions. Thank you, Vilma, for sending these over. I asked a few of them already, but yeah, some of these are quite fun. um, right. Do you always have to work with a director by your side for the majority of the bigger productions, or do you have like kind of full creativity to organize and structure a
On the
scene?
bigger stuff, I'm never the editor on the big stuff. That's like a list. That's like the first baseman on a major league team. Sorry, that's a baseball reference for you. That's like a striker on a big
Okay.
soccer team. And they have a whole support team behind them, like personal trainers and massage therapists and
No, they don't.
therapy and I don't know, whatever goes into it. I'm just like the support team for the editor right now. They do sit with the director, yeah, like pretty often. I know they'll cut like their version of it while they're shooting, and then months and months and months of sitting with the director to like fine tune it to what they wanted it to be. When I'm editing low budget stuff, I work out of my house, so they just send me footage and then I edit it and then I send them versions and then we'll do notes, and then at some point in the process we'll get on a Zoom call like you and I are doing right now, and they can see my screen and we'll just go through the whole movie that way. So it's kind of a mix of both.
How many years into your film editing career are you now, roughly?
I don't know. How do you count that? I mean, I had my degree in 2010 and started
Okay.
working in the industry, but I've been editing since 2013 in independent stuff.
So we'll say roughly about 10 years, give or take.
10, 15, yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, how long before you sort of move to the next stage of full on editor? Like, walk us
Dude,
through like the timeline of that.
no, it's different for everybody. Some people will attach themselves to a director early on, like Ryan Coogler's director. Edited their college movie, and now he's editing, Black Panther movies, which is crazy. And he's probably my age.
Damn. Okay.
Or you just luck into a job where they need a first assistant editor, and you're, the name they call, and then that editor bails halfway through, and they just bump you up. That could happen. Some people stay a first assistant editor their whole career. Like that's a career position, and they just like the editing position comes with some pressures because you're working with the studio and with the director directly. It could be stressful, it could be hard, but the first assistant is just like the technical role, and you get paid really well, and you get to work on a lot of great stuff. And some people are very happy in that role. So it just depends, man. Everyone's on their own path.
For you, how do you feel it's going? Do you feel you're very close to the next level? Is that where you want to go? Like, where do you actually want to go? What's the next, say, 5, 10 years looking like for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I have a couple of months off every year that I'd like
Hmm.
to keep shooting my own stuff for low budget because I really like doing that, and it doesn't cost me anything besides time, and I can release it and put it out there. And in a way, it's like ongoing film school because you're constantly
Yeah.
learning new things. Um, and on the other hand, I'd still like to work my way up to be first assistant and a main editor at some point. A lot of those editors are like 50, 60, 70
Okay.
years old, so it's like you do that for a long time.
Hmm.
And I got a long way to go till I need to be in that role. But one day, just take
Interesting.
it a year at a time, 2 years at a time. I've got like a script I want to shoot maybe at the end of this year. So hopefully I'll have 2 movies soon that I can put my name on. And then, I mean, since I worked on, I mean, there's movies you don't even know I've worked on yet for Marvel stuff. I'm not even allowed to say. So in the next year, you'll see like more stuff come out. So it's just always like moving forward. As long as I'm working on something and I've got like a couple things in the pipeline, I'm feeling pretty happy. I'm paying my bills. I got a family I'm supporting, and I'm also doing some creativity on the side. So no complaints.
Wish I could ask.
So sad, so sad. Keep an eye on my IMDb,
I
and
will.
they'll pop up periodically.
Was there ever a film that you had to work on and you thought to yourself, What piece of nonsense is this?
Yeah, definitely.
Just the dirt.
Trying to think what my miserable experiences were. Man, you're putting me in a tough spot because I don't want to bad talk anybody. Let me preface this by saying nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Everyone's heart is in it. Uh, a lot of things can go wrong, and even at the biggest scale, I mean, we just saw that with Shazam. They put so much money into that movie, and it just completely bombs.
Black Adam. I don't get it.
There's no reason why it just doesn't work, and you can't like put fault on anybody. They just did their best, and it just didn't work. That being said, I worked on a movie called Poms, Poms. It's about old ladies cheerleading. Not my demo, not my demographic. That's all I gotta say. Here's the thing: for every movie that you hate, how did you describe it? A piece of nonsense.
Yeah, this is what Vilma's question was. Yeah,
for every movie that you count as a piece of nonsense, there's somebody else out there who loves that movie.
Right. Like The Room.
Even this, sure.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a piece of nonsense, and that's part of the fun of it.
It is nonsense, but it's so bad that it's good. That's kind of the whole point.
Even the stuff I work on that I'm like, this isn't for me. I'm not having fun doing this. I never want to watch this. I don't even know if I want to put my name on it. There's still a huge audience out there that loves it. And who am I to judge?
For sure.
If you like it, then that's great.
Okay, well let's pivot the question slightly then. Was there any particular experiences you mentioned like sometimes it's miserable. Why? Why are there times when it's miserable? Is it because you hate the content so much, or is there like other external factors that just make it really difficult?
For me, a lot comes down to the content. Like, am I going to be proud to say that I was a part of this thing or not? And sometimes the quality is just so low that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I worked at a studio. I'm not going to say which studio it was, but they produce a lot of content, and it's not my demographic. And they shoot this stuff so fast. It's crazy. So we'll shoot a season of, like, Loki took 6 months to shoot, right? And that's what, 6 episodes?
Yeah, I think so.
They spent like a month on an episode. Or, a lot of these big shows will shoot you basically shoot 3 to 5 minutes of screen time per day, right? I worked at a studio that was shooting whole seasons of 24 episodes in 3 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, how long are the episodes, roughly?
20 minutes? 25 minutes?
Or you would shoot a lot of editing, though. Yeah,
or you would shoot like half of that, like a 12 episode thing in the same amount of time, 3 weeks, and that's like an hour long. And it's literally just setting 3 cameras up and letting the actors have one take and moving on to the next scene.
That's it. No.
Yeah. And that's, for me, it's just not fun to work on because it's like the writing is fluffy and there's like not a lot of content, even though it's an hour, like 60-page script. There's like not a lot there. It's just empty dialogue and stuff. And it's just like, what I'm looking for in a script is irony and tragedy and pain and, character arc and
right.
And intensity that increases and decreases and takes you on an emotional ride and all this. But you can't do that when you're, a lot of those just don't have that. It's just like fluff. It's like fast food. And for me, it's not fun to work on because you're just like, it's just like going to go so fast. People are going to watch this once and then never think about it again. And it's just going to be lost. There's not a lot. It feels like there's not a lot of heart in it. It's more like quantity over quality. And that's the stuff that is hard to like put a lot of hours into. You think, man, I'm working so hard on this thing, but why?
Okay, this next question, I'm going to add to it as well. So the question is working for Marvel Studios as impressive as it sounds? What I'm going to add to that is, from the industry standpoint, is that considered like a big deal? Like, okay, that's this, clearly if you work with this franchise, that means a lot. Or is it just kind of a bit, depends who you're talking to?
I think it is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to put on your resume, hey, I've worked on this kind of stuff. Or like if you go check my IMDb, a lot of times go look at a first-time director or something, and you look at their IMDb, and it's like two or three projects ever. But when
Hmm.
people go to mine, or like I have friends who, I work in the film industry. Oh, that's cool. And then they'll check me out and say, "Oh, well, you didn't tell me that's what the kind of stuff you're working on, you know?" So
This is what drives me nuts as well. But
it does
sorry,
come
go
with a
on.
little bit, it does come like a little bit of clout. Like, yeah, I've been on some big stuff, and you can be humble about it. I mean, I think it's personally, I think it's cool because this is the kind of stuff I would want. Like when I was a kid watching all those DVDs, this is the stuff I wanted to work on. You know,
Right.
that I would come home and be like, "Hey, everybody, guess what I did today?" I still feel that way. So I'm just super proud of the kind of content that I get to be a part of, even though I'm a very small part of it. And then also proud that I have the opportunity to make my own the way that I wanted to, and proud of the content, just the quality that we could turn out even with a low budget. So it's fun. It's kind of like that's just your career. Like you just have a whole bunch of different things, and they all add up to something bigger, hopefully.
One thing I sometimes hear about with these major productions is that people think maybe the cast the entire crew doesn't always necessarily get the recognition it deserves
Mm,
for these major productions, and particularly if you look at something like the Marvel movies and you consider how much work actually just goes into producing those movies and putting them
mm.
together from every different level. From your perspective, do you think that recognition is there, or do you think it needs to be better? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's always each person is their own company, so they always need to be hunting for the next job. I mean, I do the same thing. It's not like you just work on one of these and then all of a sudden your phone is ringing off the hook for, hey, work on mine. Hey, will you work on this? Hey, will you work on this? It's not quite that easy.
Yeah.
Um, but in a lot of ways, that's why you have the union. I mean, you're getting the credit by your union protections. So I make a certain amount of money and I'm going to be guaranteed that because I know that once I'm done on this job, I'm done. Like that's it. That's all I'm getting from it. That's all I'm guaranteed.
Okay.
So it's really up to you to keep that momentum going and use that leverage on the next gig and who you meet and what your network looks like. And every day you show up, are you the fun person to work with? Are you a pleasure to be around? Are you showing up on time? Are you getting the job done? Or are you someone that you're not going to get recommended, ever again? So I think it's up to the individual.
What advice could you give to aspiring filmmakers? Sorry, film editors and
Uh,
filmmakers. Yeah, why not?
yeah, in general, Um, same thing I said earlier. You don't have to wait for anybody. There's no reason, especially today, with the accessibility of what it takes to make a project. You could be doing it yourself. If you want to be an editor, then you should be looking at YouTube channels and see like, are they hiring an editor? Because even if it's cheap, you can get you know experience doing it, even if it's not for more than 6 months or a year. Uh, the other thing I would do is I don't know if it's as popular out there where you are, but uh, Facebook has a lot of groups for filmmakers in certain cities. Like in Atlanta, we've got like five or six filmmaking communities, independent film production, post production, and you can get on those groups, and people are constantly crewing up and looking for
Mm.
help. Sometimes it's for shorts or low budget features, and you might not get paid at all, or you might get paid very little, but you can get on set and start understanding how this is supposed to work. And then down the line, the people you were working with are gonna move up and work on bigger stuff, and you got to stay friends with them. And then all of a sudden, people who can get you hired, or you're the person getting other people hired. So just find a way to be a part of that kind of stuff. That's it. Whether you're producing it yourself or you're doing it with friends. Eventually, if you stick with it long enough, you will become, as long as you're a good worker and a pleasure to be around, like I was saying, people will want to have you back.
Completely agree with that. Yeah, how you compose yourself on set. This is one of the reasons as well why I asked you about the good, the bad, and the ugly as far as working on set is concerned. Because I think that
Oh yeah,
I've had
people
some
get a bad
experiences.
reputation. It starts to get around.
I've had some experiences with certain people I've worked with in the industry where, and I take there's a I always share the story, but there was a guy that I had on my show a couple of years ago, actor, career actor, and he said to me, I said to him like, well, give me some examples of times when you work with unprofessional people, and he said, I'll tell you what I'll say. This is what I say to everyone: I'll never work with them again. So you never say
Right.
anything negative about that person, but you never work with them again.
Right.
And that's like I had an instance the other day where something happened on a production that I worked on, and it was very surprising the response from this person that I'd worked with. I was like, huh, okay, that's unprofessional. And so I then responded just professional about it. I was like, okay, obviously there's a misunderstanding here. This is how this is. Move on. But in my head, I'm like, I'll never work with this person ever again. No,
Oh yeah,
this
yeah.
is
And
done
that
for me.
was an acting role, right? Or in
Um,
another capacity.
it was. Ooh, I don't know if I can say. Um,
I was just gonna say
it
it's
is voice work. It
tougher.
was voice work, but
Oh,
it
okay, sure.
was.
So that's
But it
acting.
was. Yeah,
I was just gonna
sure.
say it's tougher. It's tougher for actors because when you're in that situation, it's like you got to disconnect from it and still do the part. But man, as an actor, you're so vulnerable because it's you. You know, you're not.
Yeah.
You can't just hide and say that you never worked on it because they
Well,
could see.
that's the way I look at it. Right? Is it's look, when you sign on to a film or production, you sign on and you. It's all down to the contract. It's what you sign up for.
Mhm.
So like when you see, and I know you know this, but for the people listening at home, like when you see an actor or a group of actors promoting a film, they finished working on that film probably like a year
Yeah,
before
ages
that.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but part of their obligations as part of their contract is that they have to go and promote that film. So that's why they sit through like hundreds of
Mm.
interviews and they
Hmm.
go to the
Yeah.
premiere, they do all this stuff. They have to do that. And if it was a bad experience that working on that film, it's not going to be great when they're promoting it. And I
Right.
sometimes you see this
True.
come across. Like I think you can kind of see it. If we go back to Game of Thrones, I always launch on them because. But if you look at some of the interviews with the cast for that final season, their responses are very telling. None of them say anything negative because obviously they're not allowed to,
Sure.
but their faces say it all, their reactions say it all. They were
Mm,
very creatively frustrated with that. You
yeah,
can
yeah,
tell. And maybe not all of them, maybe some of them just saw it as like, whatever, it's work, I
yeah,
just do what
yeah.
I'm paid to do. And
Right.
I generally like I take pride in what I do when it comes to acting. Of course, but whatever the director wants, they want. But when the
Sure.
director is like unprofessional or
Yeah.
difficult to work with, um, especially when you're on the set or you're doing things, it just ruins the
Yeah.
whole
But see,
experience.
that's why it's tougher for actors, I think, because someone could act like that to me, and I'm still just gonna go sit at this computer and like push buttons, and I can
Right.
just internalize it all and not. But you still have to separate yourself from that and like be in a happy mood or whatever the scene calls for. And I can't do that. I can't. I don't know how you guys do it, but it's
It's made me understand certain scenarios now. Like for example, Christopher Eccleston's decision not to work on Doctor Who again,
mm,
and the fans desperately want it. I know he's worked on audio stuff, but like I'm talking specifically like the on-screen stuff. He's had opportunity after opportunity. They're always trying to get him back. He won't, especially now because I think the producer or director Russell T Davies has returned to it,
mm,
and that was the people he fell out with. And his
mm,
reasoning, he's been quite transparent about why he won't be on it. And I didn't used to get there, but now I'm like, no, I get it. If that was your
yeah, yeah,
experience, why would you go back to that? Even if the
right,
fans
right.
desperately want it, it's like at the end of the day, you're putting aside a certain amount of time of your life to do
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. Why would you put yourself into another year of toxic relationships
Right.
when you could be paid the same? You could feel more fulfilled as a creative on another project. Like, dude, take the one that's going to make you bring you happiness. You know?
A couple of final questions for you, because I know we've had you here for a long time. So I
Oh
really
yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
of course.
Best advice you've ever received?
Oh, best advice I ever received. Goodness sakes, no one's ever asked me that.
Boom.
I think it was the same. I think it was the same thing. It was my producing partner on Solid Rock Trust, who I had been editing for. He lives out in California. He was like, the toughest thing to do on making a movie is decide that you're going to do it and just make it happen, you know? And I was scared to make it happen. I wanted help along the way. COVID hit, which slowed everything else down. And then my wife gave me the exact same advice. There's no reason we can't do this in Georgia. We'll just do it here. and he can still help us from California, like bookkeeping and that kind of support. But there's no reason we can't do it. Let's just decide to do it. And it was the same advice, like just get off your butt and make it happen. That's the hardest thing, just to commit. So I'm thankful for that advice.
Similar question, but different direction. What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Uh, hmm. It would be very easy to give that same answer, but I'm going to give you something different. Uh, I think the I think I, something that took me a while to come around to was it's okay to be yourself and do it the way you want to do it. And as long as you're being authentic, people will be attracted to that, you know? So you don't have to do it the way you think it's supposed to be done. When I was directing, I was like, had a lot of energy and talk to everyone and be friendly with everybody. But that's not how a lot of directors work, especially when it gets bigger. It's like kind of closed off and separated. But you know what? I'm okay with being friends with everybody and getting to know everyone's name. And sitting and eating lunch with the crew, that doesn't happen very often on the big stuff. And I'm not like dressed nice. I'm just like in a t-shirt like everybody else, and we're just all here to do this thing together. And same goes with afterwards, like being willing to talk to people like you. And you know what? If you don't like me, tough. You don't have to listen. I'm just gonna keep being myself and putting my stuff out there, and hopefully you like it. But if not, then we'll move on. So,
To draw things
okay.
to a close for today. Next question. Do you have any final thoughts to share with us or upcoming projects you'd like to share?
I can't really talk about anything else that's coming out. I have a script written, and like I mentioned, I'm gonna try to shoot this year.
Yep.
Hopefully, I can come back and talk to you about that. Um, Tons of Marvel stuff coming out in the next year or two. Uh, Please go watch Solid Rock Trust. It's available on in the UK. It's on Amazon for rental or purchase. Everywhere else, it's on Tubi for free. You can get it on Google Play and YouTube Movies. And then as of June 1st, it's available everywhere in the world for free on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch it there. But check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave me a nice review or something on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or Letterboxd, wherever you do your stuff. And I think you'll have a good time. It's a roller coaster ride.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
just
thank you.
sharing
So
your
fun. You're great.
time, stories. I know my listeners will love this show as much as I have. So thank you.
Sweet. Well, good luck out there. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir. And to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve Podcast, as always, be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.